Welcome to Get Mad. I'm Mad Hildebrandt, and on this episode, we are joined by Brian Neil Rosser. Brian is a progressive Democrat running for Georgia's House of Representatives in District 5. Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so what I'd like to do at the beginning, what I really like to do with most of the candidates that come on, is actually have you talk a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your district, because a lot of times even the people that live in your district might really not understand what all that comprises.
Right. Well, about me, there is whenever I go and I give my stump speech somewhere, or I'm at a candidate forum, the thing I like to stress most to people is that there is nothing about me that makes me any better than anyone else. My qualifications do not come from reaching some kind of entrepreneurial or career milestone or some kind of educational milestone. So if one thing I have to stress is that what I feel qualifies me to be on a ballot and to represent the people of this district is that there are two sides to legislation. There are two sides to policy. There's the side with the pen and there's the side with the negative outcomes. And the side with the pen is always insulated from the negative impacts of their own legislation. They never have to worry about it. They don't have to live out their own policies, but we do. And that's what I've been doing all my life. So I feel that I'm able to represent people because I'm another common Joe. I'm just another regular person. So as far as how I've gotten into politics and why I want to get involved in politics, that really goes to money in politics. There is no representative democracy anywhere that I can really find in my state. Everything is controlled by the wealthy few, and it's the same as in any other district, whether it's a congressional district or a house, state house or state senate. It's just another microcosm of American politics and everything that's broken about American politics. And I think it takes regular, everyday people, whether they have a master's degree or not, to step up and change it. I live in Gordon County, that's Calhoun, Georgia, and my district is House District 5, so that's the majority of Gordon County, and then the southernmost portion of Murray County, which is directly above us. Okay. And Murray is incredibly poor, very rural, has been completely left behind by any of the GOP policies that have been enacted by their representatives. And Gordon County is doing a little bit better. We're a little more industrialized. We have more job opportunities here, but at the end of the day, 1 in 5 people is still living in pretty abysmal poverty. 1 in 5 people lacks health insurance, and the game is really rigged against most people. Everyone is a health problem or a contingency away from complete ruin. So the people that really appear to be doing well on the surface, it's still a house of cards. People don't have any economic security or job security. There's a lot, our district looks pristine and wonderful on the surface, but there's a lot going on that people don't see.
Right. I really get that. And as I talk to people across this country, not just people here in my own state of New Mexico, but we see that over and over and over again, that the policies that have been handed to us are really holding us down, so that even when we've got this great upturn supposedly in our economy, all of us regular people, just everybody on the ground here, we're not experiencing the same thing. And
right. If you don't own stocks, then the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act didn't do a thing for you. Even Fox News admits that 6 in 10 Republican voters didn't get their tax cut, didn't see a spike in their wages. And I've been talking to workers all over this district. That is very true.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the more we talk to people and find that out, I mean, it really is time just to see a shift. And so when we're talking about that, and you brought up the state of just the health of people in your district, and then
Right.
when you're talking also about the fact that they're just, you know, an illness away, from ruin. So can you talk about healthcare and what you hope to do for your district and the people in your state? I mean, really, because
Yeah.
it would be your
Yeah.
state.
Well, the way healthcare is in my district is it reflects how healthcare works for the rest of the state of Georgia. It's really no different, and it's completely broken. Georgia is in the minority of states that have opted not to expand Medicaid under the ACA. And keep in mind, I am not a fan of Obamacare or the ACA. I don't think it went far enough. I think it would have been okay if there weren't 160 amendments added to it by people who ultimately voted no across the board on it. But there's really, let me explain it. I'll explain it real quick.
Sure.
Here in Georgia, we didn't expand Medicaid. So what's been happening is our governor and the Georgia General Assembly has been pushing $33.7 billion off the table for, I mean, tribalism, for the sake of tribalism or for partisanship.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue of healthcare has absolutely spiraled out of control under the GOP's watch. And keep in mind that my opponent, John Meadows, he is a health insurance agent, and he actually uses the power of office. He raises insurance rates from the House floor in his capacity as the chair of the House Rules Committee so that he can line his own pockets in his capacity as an insurance agent. And what that has led to, out of Georgia's 159 counties, 79 lack an obstetrician, 63 don't have a pediatrician, 66 have no general surgeons, 33 lack an internal medicine specialist, 6 do not have a family physician, 8 rural hospitals have permanently closed their doors. Georgia now has the 3rd highest uninsured population nationwide. That affects 1.9 million Georgians. The CDC ranks Georgia as the 4th worst state for healthcare in the United States. The CDC has also ranked Georgia the 4th highest state for infant mortality. And now a Georgian's lifespan is 4 years less than that of an average American. So healthcare is absolutely broken here. And it's really an issue that's near and dear to me because I've always struggled with healthcare and affording insurance. And I've always watched my family struggle and the people that I know struggle who have a lot of problems, a lot of health problems that they were born into this world by no choice of their own. They didn't ask to have diabetes. They didn't ask to have, you know, whatever cancer pops up later in life or whatever blood disorder or connective tissue disorder. But what you see is medications that used to cost $1 a pill now cost, if you don't pay your ransom to the robber barons in the insurance industry, then you have to pay $300,000 a year for a medication that will save your life. You know, and which is the product? Is it the medication or the life that it's going to save? The poor person who has to end up paying that amount to keep on living here in Georgia. And the same is true nationwide. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
We don't have a healthcare system here. What we have is a hostage situation. And that's why one of the main reasons that I'm running for office, because if we don't have the votes in the Georgia General Assembly to expand Medicaid, this is only going to get worse. And it's not really in question. Any Democrat worth their salt understands the need to expand Medicaid. And we've reached a point where, I mean, of course, the right here, they look at everything through the filter of national politics. They think I'm Nancy Pelosi. They think I'm Chuck Schumer. But at the end of the day, 51% of Republicans embrace expanding Medicaid because that's something that will directly help them. That's something that will directly affect their lives and bring them economic and health relief.
Mm-hmm. Right, because what people seem to, or at least people on the other side of the aisle, have a tendency to do is discount the idea that healthcare is also an economic driver. You know,
Yes.
because you have hospitals, you have healthcare employees, and so just having a successful healthcare system is also going to help the economy.
Right.
In
Just simply simply accepting Medicaid funds here will create 56,000 new jobs in the state of Georgia. It will generate $65 billion in economic activity. Um, that's this is one of those situations where the fiscally conservative pro-business thing to do is also the humane and progressive thing to do. It's a win-win across the board.
Right, right. It sure sounds like it. And since we're talking about that and touching on the economy, let's turn and move all the way into the economy, and let's talk about what your plans are for jobs and the economy of your district and for your state.
Right. Well, that's a big issue. That's a
Yeah.
very big issue. We are the carpet capital of the world here in Northwest Georgia. Most of the carpet that is in people's homes came from Mohawk, Apache, Shaw, Nance, places right here. But the wages are decent. The conditions are terrible. 12-hour work days, 6 days a week. There's really not a lot of opportunity to get jobs elsewhere. There's a lot of agriculture here. But people are starting to find out what it really costs for Donald Trump to start his tit for tat trade wars. We're seeing the effects of some of that. And we have, a lot of hospitality. We're kind of one of those places that's just in between everywhere, at least in Gordon. One of those places just kind of in between everywhere where you can stop and get a hotel or, stop and get a bite to eat. We have a lot of low paying, part-time restaurant jobs or low paying hotel jobs. But what I want to bring to the table, there is absolutely no question, no matter where you go in the United States, that people overwhelmingly want to legalize marijuana. Now, my philosophy on that is, you can look at Geo Group or Core Civics baby prisons. You can look at the inhumanity on the border. You can look at, feed the rich policy, making the mass of workers ultimately give their bosses a $1.9 trillion handout and then go borrow the money from China to pay it. But God help you if you smoke a joint. This is an agriculture state. Georgia farmers do what they do, I would argue, better than anyone else. I think that is a market that we definitely need to utilize. We need to use it. And we have serious problems here. You've seen it anywhere that it's been legalized. When people legalize with a purpose and use the tax revenue generated from legalizing cannabis, you can solve major issues that no one else has. Either they don't know how to solve it or they don't have the political will to solve it. But it would also be an incredible job creator. There are a lot of statistics out there. I don't know really what's what, but it's just really not in question that if we start cultivating our own medical and adult use cannabis here in state, we're going to generate new wealth here in the state to use to solve all of our problems while creating an enormous amount of jobs.
Yeah, and that's one of those things that the topics that we do see, particularly in the more progressive community, that we're talking about legalizing cannabis to some degree or another in various states. And I know that whatever states don't do it are the ones that are going to be left behind economically.
Right.
And,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and, another thing that I would like to touch on as far as the economy goes. So consider teachers. Right now we have educators all across the United States well, in recent months, that were striking to be paid what they're worth,
Right.
to have a say. Now in Georgia, it is illegal for teachers to form a union, really, or to have collective bargaining of any kind. But I think a really good, and this is just a small example. We can do this with lots of industries. We can do this with lots of public infrastructure, government offices. If we want, people love tax cuts. They really love tax cuts. Everyone likes to save money. What I want to see is to make the necessary cuts to things that are obsolete, to phase things out, and start to solarize all public infrastructure, so that we can pay our workers that we already have, that are government workers or work in public service of any kind, pay them the wages that they are worth. And that's a massive job creator. It's a big job to transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies. But that's something that we can do. The technology exists. As far as I know, no megalomaniacal billionaire has claimed ownership of the sun yet. And I think we should be using it, as well as wind, or, over in Alabama, they're using algae to do all kinds of incredible things. So anything renewable, that is a market, and we can use that market. We can bring those jobs here. And in fact, it's not in my district, but where I went to college, Dalton, Georgia, Whitfield County, a South Korean company has just moved in that is a solar manufacturer, and they'll be opening up their doors really soon. So there's really no reason not to.
Oh yeah, easily bring that over into your district as well. And while we're talking about green energy, let's talk about two House bills that I think are that you guys are going to have to deal with, or you'll have to deal with the next time around here, very quickly. And that is House Bill 205 and also 1059, and that deals with fracking, and that seems, coming from a state out here where there's fracking galore, and and if you're anti-fracking, you're just anti-fracking, but a lot of people don't realize that you're going to be dealing with those issues too. So talk about that.
Yeah, I've been trying to spread the word far and wide. This was one of those, House Bill 205, it was one of those bills that had a very Orwellian elevator pitch attached to it. It was touted as an environmentally conscious measure to protect Georgia's waterways by regulating fracking. Well, hell, fracking wasn't here until they wrote the bill. And my opponent, John Meadows, wrote both of those bills. Important to mention. What House Bill 205 does is it establishes a regulatory oil and gas board to regulate and dole out the permits to fracking companies in the state of Georgia. What no one is being told is that the people who choose who goes on that board, one of them is the ex-vice president of Southern Company, which is the largest fossil fuel, utility polluter in the Western Hemisphere. And one of them is one of the board of directors of SunTrust Bank, which was heavily invested in every tar sand or fossil fuel pipeline where you saw protesters getting their skulls cracked open by Blackwater or by tiger swan. So that's definitely an issue. Right off the bat, the bill is built. It's the stuff of cronyism. But what my opponent had a photo op with one of the gentlemen from the Coosa River Basin Initiative, which is an environmental group. They were giving him a trophy and applauding him for writing this bill. The problem with that is, they call him a water protector. He's not, because what they're trying to get at is the Conasagua shale bed. That is trillions of cubic feet of natural gas, pretty much in all of Northwest Georgia. And it runs right beneath a lot of our main water sources. What they're not telling folks is that, if they're not fracking below 1,800 feet, that bill does not apply to them and they can do whatever the heck they want. What they're not telling people is that fracking is not going to work any differently here than it probably works where you're at, or than it worked in Oklahoma. And Georgia, Northwest Georgia, particularly my neck of the woods, Gordon County, has major fault lines here. And the wastewater disposal secondary to fracking causes earthquakes like clockwork. Like clockwork. It's not in question. It's absolutely not in question. So whenever they start fracking on top of fault lines, especially the irregularly shaped fault line on the west side of my whole county, I know what happens. I've heard that song before. I know exactly what happens, and it's not worth what we're going to pay for it. Nobody wanted it, but here it is. I follow Chris Hedges. Do you know who Chris Hedges is?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead and tell.
He's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. He used to be a war correspondent for the New York Times. He's one of the greatest thinkers of our time, and he talks in several of his speeches and in his books about what's called sacrifice zones. Mm-hmm. He explains how he went to West Virginia, went up where they're blowing up the mountaintops. And there's these small communities there where everyone has had to have their gallbladder removed because of the complications from this. And then you walk into the nurses station at the schools, and there are rows of inhalers for every child there. I feel like what happened was Northwest Georgia was marked as a sacrifice zone for what Chris Hedges also calls the nameless, faceless corporate state. But there are so many moving parts to these bills. All the counties adjacent to mine have already had their mineral rights bought up by fossil fuel conglomerates, one in Oklahoma and another one in Texas. Fracking is already underway in Whitfield County. My friend in Resaca, which is part of my district where I used to live, it's a very rural part of Gordon County, and it's beautiful to me. I think it's beautiful. And there's explosions underground, and nobody knows where it's coming from. I'll tell you where it's coming from. I know exactly where it's coming from. So they're going to move these operations into poor communities, largely communities of color, because they have. It is what it is. They're not going to have legal recourse. Like in Floyd County, there's a larger, black community there. So what's going to happen is they're probably going to start really hard and heavy there, because that's what they do anywhere else.
Right. Yeah.
And then House Bill 1059, that's literally just a paragraph. It's the whole bill is one page, also authored by my opponent, and it's not directly connected. No one's talking about it, but there's no way it isn't connected to House Bill 205, because what it does is it eliminates the democratically elected position of county surveyor in Murray County, which again is part of my district. Very, very poor rural community, so that one can henceforth be appointed. Now, I've heard that song. I know exactly what they're going to do. They're going to put their man on the inside to let them do whatever they want. If that position's not going to be elected anymore, it's going to be appointed. Well, there's a purpose for that. And the only purpose I can think of is to let fossil fuel companies come in and just ravage wherever they want and be exempt from consequence.
Yeah, that sounds very much like that's the natural flow. That it makes a lot of sense and not good sense. As you know, most of the fracking things don't seem to make a lot of good sense to anyone who is going to pause and think about it for any reason other than their pocketbook.
Yeah, even if we're getting some tax revenue in return, we're still trading 8 million gallons of our water for each fracking site. That on its face is not worth what we're going to be paying for it.
Oh, yeah. Right, because we know that once you've destroyed those water sources, they're gone. They're gone. You can't clean them back up. At least we cannot do it yet. So that it turns you all into a sacrifice zone. So we're getting close to the end here. Let's take a few minutes, and I'd like you to speak to the veterans in your community. A lot of my viewers are veterans, and so that's an important topic for me. I'm a veteran, so can you speak to them and how what your approach is going to be towards them.
Okay, that's pretty comprehensive. That's all of my policies, my vision for Georgia. It all works. All these ideas work synergistically together to achieve certain outcomes. And there's a long game and there's a short game. The short game has everything to do with how we treat veterans. It's really not a secret that both parties have failed abysmally to take care of veterans. It's horrible. And in Georgia, a great example is there's a not. And keep in mind, not one of my representatives, not one of my senators had anything to say about this. There was a man named John Watts. He was a 58-year-old Air Force veteran. I believe this was I think it was in June. I'm pretty sure this was in June. He walked on the Capitol grounds, doused himself in gasoline, and set himself on fire to protest the Veterans Administration because not all VAs are created the same. And Georgia's is absolute garbage. It is absolute garbage. So whenever our veterans step out from behind their weapons, that's when Uncle Sam stops caring about them. And the military is going to be operating on, I believe it's a $719 billion budget in fiscal year 2019. And not a bit of that is going to go to helping veterans. I already know it. They're just going to buy more guns, more weapons. They're going to weaponize space is what they're going to do. Here in Georgia, on any given night, there are a bunch of statistics. It's hard to really get the straight of it. But there are going to be between 900 and, based off my estimates and all the information I can find, between 900 and 1,500 homeless veterans that are going to sleep outside. Now, we can spend whatever amount of money on building a new sports stadium or giving gun manufacturers some kind of tax break or some kind of feed the rich policy, whatever. But we'll never do anything about that. So what I am proposing is to legalize cannabis, but do it with the purpose. And in the first several years of legalizing cannabis and collecting tax revenue, that there will be more than enough money to get all these homeless veterans together. A lot of these people are never going to be fit for the workforce again. That doesn't mean we throw them away. That doesn't mean we let them starve. That doesn't mean we let them freeze to death or sleep outside in the elements. They need a roof over their heads. They need a fridge full of food. They need a social worker, and they need health care. So what we need to do is we need to first get them off the streets. And then we need to make sure that all the cuts that are being made to the social safety net nationally, that we insulate veterans, because a lot of the veterans here are on food stamps, are on Medicaid. Insulate them from the effects of that. But most importantly, what we need to do, I favor single payer on the national scale, but on the local scale or on the state scale, what I think we need to do is the way healthcare for veterans really ought to work is instead of scheduling an appointment with your doctor 2 months in advance for a very basic procedure and having to make a 4-hour round trip just to go to a VA facility and sit in front of a computer with a webcam to talk to a doctor who can't physically touch you or can't physically talk to you or examine you. The way it needs to be is the nature of veterans healthcare here and everywhere else should be walk into any clinic, walk into any emergency room, walk into any wherever and present your military ID and get the care you need. Now, I know that's what Donald Trump kind of had in mind with the veterans or the VA choice program, but that's, everything from that administration is ultimately a deal with the devil. It's ultimately some way to, privatize something, break something until it no longer works so that you can get the people who depend on it upset so they can hand it off to billionaires.
Right.
I don't want to do that here. I want to use the money from, whether it's, reducing tax burden by solarizing things or cannabis legalization or making the necessary cuts. We can take care of veterans. There's no reason why we can't. And it's not as bad as it can get, but it's pretty damn horrible. And there's a lot that we can do about it. What's missing is the political will to get it done and to stop discarding these people, because I'm not a veteran, but neither is a lot of the fossil fuel oligarchs.
Right.
They don't have to go over to these foreign countries and run over an IED, get blown up, and then come back and then have to fight just to get the most basic health care that they could get.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. And, for veterans, as long as they know that things are being, managed or changed in a thoughtful manner in which they themselves are also a part of decision making of what they need, then that is a path forward that could really actually work. So at this point, we're right at the end. I would like you to take a minute and just talk directly to your constituents. I would like you to provide your website URL and your ActBlue, or however you want to receive donations.
Okay. Well, as far as donations go, one of the things I always tell people, I'm not trying to compete to raise a whole bunch of money. I'm just trying to get my message out there. I'm trying to reach voters. At the end of the day, I don't want your money. I want your vote. I don't take corporate PAC money. I'm not beholden to anyone except the people here in this district. But one of the things that I really want to say to people is that if you are on the left or you are on the right, this is what a lot of people don't want to hear. They don't ever want to take the time to hear. Your problem isn't the same person that lives in your zip code. Your problem isn't your neighbor. There's a lot of racial tensions being blown out of proportion because of the gubernatorial race here. Your enemy isn't the immigrant that came here to earn a living that has no money and no power. The enemy isn't to the left or to the right. Don't look down for the source of your problems. Look up, because what we have, especially in states like Georgia, we don't have politicians. We have proxies. They are simply there. A lot of our legislators, and I talk to these people, I argue with these people. I seek them out and try to have discussions with them. And it just reinforces my point. They are not here to serve the public good. And I'm talking specifically about the GOP here. They're not here to serve the public good. They are here to take the heat for their donors so that they don't lose face with the public when they act in bad faith or do terrible things to the people of this state. They're not here to help you. If they have decided that the word no is also socialism, what they're doing is they're pushing everything that can help you off the table. Being a Democrat in rural Georgia, it's really a paradox. It's a paradox to try and convince voters who are looking at you through the filter of national politics, who are fully aware that we never recovered from the recession of 2008, and it's been pinned on Barack Obama. It's hard to get them to give you an ear. But the policies that the Democrats are pushing for all the way down the ballot they're geared towards helping the people who have been left behind. And that's a growing number, and it's not going to get any better until we change it. And I can't speak for all the other candidates. I know some of them take corporate PAC money. I know that some of them are beholden to special interests, but I am not. And I am on the far left. I've had some people characterize me as left of Marx. I don't know if that's true. But my goal is, I've laid it out. My goal is to help the people of this district and to solve the problems that we have. And I don't care if you have a D or an R by your name, or if you hate both parties. Your health matters to me. Your well-being matters to me. Your economic dignity matters to me. Your future matters to me. The air you breathe, the water you drink, it matters to me. And that's a lot more than I can say about Johnny Meadows or Chuck Payne or Tom Graves or Governor Nathan Deal, or especially Brian Kemp. That's about what I would say. And as far as fundraising, I don't want to beg for money. like I said, I don't want your money. I want your vote. But campaigns are expensive, and money or politics is really a pay-to-play endeavor, and it sucks. That's why my part of my platform is to get big donor money out of politics altogether with an Article 5 Convention of the States to overturn Citizens United and Buckley v. Vallejo. But if you want to give to me, if my message has resonated with you, that would be CrowdPack. I don't have the URL handy. I don't know if you might could post it in the
Yeah,
description.
we will post these in the comments. Yeah.
Okay, but I have a CrowdPack. If you would like to learn more about my platform, go to rosserforgeorgia.com. I am all over social media. Whether you want to call me a communist or to have a civilized discussion with me, please come and talk to me. Please. I'd love to tell you about my platform.
Okay, well, that all sounds very awesome, and thanks for being here today and for sharing a few of your ideas. And we really look forward to seeing how this election turns out.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all the exposure I can get. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely, and thank all of you out there watching. Take a closer look at Brian Rosser, and